Hello, and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for joining us tonight. The stakes are high in the 2026 midterms, and their outcome will either doom or support the Trump MAGA agenda, depending on who wins the House and or Senate, where the GOP currently holds a narrow majority. But D.C. is not the only government swamp. Nashville is crawling with reptiles as well. One of those reptiles, and make sure you understand that's my description, not our guest, is Senator Richard Briggs from the 7th District of Knox County. He's the incumbent of that district. He is a fitting candidate for the reptile files that I have done on this show in the past, and I will probably do one on him in the future, but tonight we have the man who intends to challenge him in 2026, Kent Morrell, and he can highlight Briggs' record and his donors, as well as what Kent will fight to do if he is elected. He will join us in just a minute. But first, a Trump update. You've probably heard by now that Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after lower estimates of job creation. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, Trump just can't handle the bad news. He's got a bad economy. I don't think that's what the case is here. My question is, what took him so long? This has been a long-term problem, going back to the Biden administration, really going back before then. This constant revision of numbers. And in fact, Trump mentioned that. He mentioned that, hey, this is the same crew that revised the numbers right before the election to try to help Kamala. So what I don't understand is why, when Trump took over in January, that's not one of the first things they were looking at, because he is correct. You have to get accurate numbers. And if it's the method that's inaccurate, then that needs to be addressed. If it's the people that are incompetent or politicizing the numbers, then that needs to be dealt with as well. And so I'm glad to see this finally happen, because we've known for a while the numbers are BS and that they can be manipulated. So whatever the cause of that needs to be addressed. Like I say, this should have probably been a week one deal that he took care of. The Trump appointee from Tennessee for the secretary, for the second in command at the Department of Education, Penny Not Worth a Schwinn, that's my name for her, she has been removed from consideration for Deputy Secretary of the Education Department. My question, why was she ever recommended? Who is Trump listening to when it comes to Tennessee? Let's not forget, in 2022, he endorsed Bill Lee. Well, now that scared away a couple of potential challengers, and maybe we would not have been stuck with Lee if Trump had not endorsed him. So once again, you have to really wonder who in Tennessee Trump is listening to, because he's getting some terrible advice. I am glad that apparently Senator Hagerty, Senator Blackburn, and a lot of other people in the state, there were a lot of people contacting D.C., the Trump administration, to say, hey, look, this is a bad choice. So I'm glad to hear that she will not actually be in that position. I am disappointed to hear that apparently she's going to be paid to be a consultant. Hopefully that gig doesn't last too long. Russia and Ukraine, still in the news again. There was a back and forth with Trump and Medvedev, I believe is his name. He's the defense minister for Russia. And basically, he made the comment the other day that, reminding Trump that, and let me back up. This was after Trump said, hey, now I'm only going to give Russia 10 to 12 days to work out some kind of deal with Ukraine and end this war. Well, remember, this is not our war. Trump early on talked about if he had been in power that this would have never happened. He talked about how stupid Biden was for getting us involved. And the other day, when he changed his mind on the timeline to get this thing resolved, which once again is not our fight, in my opinion, Medvedev said, hey, reminded him that, hey, we're not Iran. We are a nuclear power. That upped the ante a little bit. Trump sent some carriers, I believe, to that area just in case there's something more than talk. I did see earlier today where Putin came out and said, hey, I do the foreign policy, not the other guy. So that's a good thing. But this is, like I said, not why is Trump making it ours? He was right when he said it was a terrible idea, and that Biden was the problem. This is something that we should have never, a road we should have never gone down. I would have hoped by now that he would have just turned it over to Europe and say, this is your problem, because guess what? There would be no war. There would be no fighting if we were not supporting Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia are both corrupt, but it's not our fight. Now to our guest, Kent Morrell. Kent is the founder and owner of one of the largest indoor aquarium businesses in the Southeast called Indoor Oceans. He also had a life-changing, pain-inducing event in 2000 that led him to be a patient advocate. That experience has put him at odds with the healthcare industry and government regulation, not only at the federal level, but the state level as well. This and other concerns about bloated and overbearing government resulted in him running for state senate in 2022 against incumbent reptile, once again my choice of words, Richard Briggs. He intends to run again in 2026 against Briggs. Kent has a few different websites you want to check out. The main ones you want to look at is sendkent.com and badbillbriggs.com. There's a lot of information on those sites. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. How you doing tonight?
I'm great, Dave. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you on, and I'm glad you're in the race. Briggs has been one of the worst for years now, and he definitely needs a challenger, and hopefully you're the guy that can rid us of this guy. Let's start with your story so the audience will understand where you're coming from in reference to, I mentioned a pain-inducing event, long-term pain-inducing event. Let's talk about that a little bit. What exactly happened?
Well, as you mentioned, I own a company called Indoor Oceans. That company's 32 years old this year. I started that company in 1993 to help pay for college, and it grew so fast, my wife was having to go to class to take notes for me. And finally, at the end of the spring semester in 94, my wife said, honey, why are you still in school when you're making the money you want to make now versus 2 years from when you graduate? So I dropped out of college and did that full time. Now, we were living the American dream. I met the woman that would become my wife in high school band in 1984. So we've been together 41 years now. We got married in 1990. We always wanted 4 kids. We were going to wait, but as life would have it, our first child was born within the first year of being married. And so we decided we'd go ahead and have the 4 kids that we wanted. So every other year we had a child. So 91, 93, 95, and 97. And my wife was a stay-at-home mom. We eventually had 4 kids in private school. Like I said, the American dream, man, it was awesome. But I was in a serious car accident on September 22nd, 2000. It's my son's 3rd birthday. I got T-boned at 40 miles an hour. I saw it coming and did the worst thing that you can do. I tensed up. So if you're ever about to get T-boned, try to relax. So what happened
That's easier to say than do, no doubt.
Yes, sir. It's much easier. But I was holding on to the steering wheel so tightly that when I got hit, it ripped the thoracic muscles on both sides of my spine, knocked my van off the road. And what they didn't realize was it had done serious damage. And I was just mad at the time because this was messing up my son's birthday. And it was a Friday afternoon. We had plans. And I didn't feel the damage at first because the adrenaline's kicked in. And the police officer that responded said, you need to get him to the hospital because he's hurt worse than he realizes. And I didn't want to go. And finally, about 2 hours after we got home, the pain started showing up. And that kicked off a 19-year-long journey trying to get appropriate pain care. There's not a lot they can do for nerve damage. I finally got diagnosed with permanent nerve damage to my spine. I did 2 years of physical therapy, had major surgery to try to remove the scar tissue where the surgeon went in and cut off some spinous processes off my spine and tried to remove the scar tissue. And he told me it's a 50-50 chance that this will help or it won't. And it didn't help. And finally, in December of 2002, they finally told us this, meaning the pain is permanent, adjust your life accordingly. And what that meant I was going to have to turn. He became a. That also meant my wife was going to have to get a job. It meant we're going to have to pull our kids out of private school and sell our house and move to somewhere more affordable. And we did all that, and it almost destroyed us. But I spent over the next 15 years. I had 52 surgical procedures on my spine. I was bedridden for a decade. I mean, they told me I wasn't.
Having some technical issues here.
What got me into politics was it personally affected my health. Yeah. Am I there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now. You froze up a couple times.
All right. Sorry about that. But what got me into politics was the state started changing laws that personally affected my health in 2015. And that's when I started paying attention to what was going on in there. I see me locking up right there.
Yeah, you locked up again. That's not sure what the problem is.
Well, you tell me which way to go, brother.
Just keep going. We'll see what we can do here.
All right. So the state changed laws. That's when I got involved in politics. Personally affected my health. In 2018, I lost access to care. I did not expect to see 2019. I had two of my daughters getting married in 2018. And just having two weddings within 6 weeks of each other was stressful enough. But I just didn't see a way forward after I lost access to care. And I asked my wife for permission to self-terminate. She did not give me that permission. She said, I have not gone through 18 years of misery for you to quit now. You better find a way through this. And so I did. I found a way. And it was a natural treatment option that I don't want to get into right now. We can talk about that some other time if you want. But my wife also stopped praying for me to get through the day and started praying for a miracle. And I got that miracle on Memorial Day of 2019 when I woke up without pain for the first time in 18 years, 8 months, and 5 days.
But who's counting?
And I have been pain-free ever since. Well, I count, brother.
Yeah.
There's a verse in Psalm 90:12, teach us to number our days that we have a heart of wisdom. And I have counted my good days ever since I've been healed. And today is bonus day 2,261. And I will count my days until I get back the 6,821 days that I lost to pain.
Wow. So 10 years. You were bedridden for 10 years.
Yeah, well, not at the same time. It's 2.5 years the first time,
okay.
4 years, and then 2.5 years again. So it was just recovering. I spent 4 years just recovering from surgeries.
Wow. Now,
if you add all the...
I'm sorry. What was the change the state made that was a problem?
I was a chronic pain patient, all right? I have genetic issues where I do not process medications correctly. It takes about 10 times the amount of pain medicine to affect me. There's a system in your liver called the cytochrome P450 system. It processes 90% of the medications that go through your body. Some people process them too fast, like me. Some people process them too slowly. If you've ever heard a story about someone dying from what should be a normal Tylenol dose, that's this system. Because you get the negative buildup in your liver, it doesn't clear fast enough, and it ends up killing you. Well, I woke up in the middle of a surgery once when I was supposed to be fully sedated, and then my doctors realized, wow, he really doesn't process it. And then I had genetic testing done in 2013 that showed genetically I've got anomalies on 3 of the 8 enzymes in my liver system. And so the law they changed, if you remember back in around 2015, there were pill mills around. Pill mills are awful. And so the state thought there were doctors writing too many prescriptions, and there were some that were writing too many prescriptions. But there are also people like me that needed the high-dose opioid therapy because that's all that worked. Same thing that's happened to veterans that have had terrible accidents and injuries in combat situations. They can't get appropriate pain management now. So in the state of Tennessee, there was a law called the Intractable Pain Care Act that protected doctors that treated patients like me. And so they repealed that because they thought that was contributing to the opioid crisis. Well, it turns out it wasn't. From 2016 to 2021, opioid deaths have increased 500% in the state of Tennessee, and our suicide rate now exceeds the national average. So I've been a healthcare advocate for the last 10 years for this issue. This is what got me into politics, because Tennesseans are dying because they are not getting appropriate health care. And it's the state involvement that has caused that.
So they changed this law, but I mean, they didn't really have any evidence that that was contributing to the problems. They just said, oh, well, this is probably contributing, and they repealed it.
That's correct.
Accurate?
That is accurate. Yeah.
Do you remember who the sponsors were?
I do. It's one of my favorite senators. Janice Bowling is the one that sponsored the one, and I love Janice. She's fantastic. I absolutely love Janice. She's been very encouraging to me. Politicians aren't perfect. I mean, she thought she was doing a good thing, and it passed unanimous to repeal it. It was a unanimous vote to repeal it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what can they change at the state level? Just basically reverse that?
Well, that would be one step. I think opening up options for, I've worked with a number of veterans that deal with depression, and I used to think physical pain was the worst thing that you could deal with. I used to look down on people, and I hate to say this, I used to look down on people that dealt with severe depression and severe anxiety. Well, until I personally got to experience severe anxiety and severe depression myself after I lost access to care, that there were about 3 months in 2018 where the depression and the anxiety and the panic attacks were so bad that I had to make a decision to take my next breath for 3 months. It was horrendous. And so when I finally made it through that, and it was bad, brother, I'm just going to tell you, my wife was afraid to come home. I mean, she's afraid she's going to find me dead. She's in education now, and she was an assistant principal at a school 45 minutes away. And one day she stopped calling me when she was coming home, and I said, "Baby, I need to hear from you. Why did you stop calling?" And she said, "Because I was afraid you wouldn't answer the phone." And it was that bad. I mean, she was having friends call me. Our kids are adults now. When my accident happened, my kids were 3, 5, 7, and 9. When I got healed, they were 22, 24, 26, and 28. So I lost almost 2 decades with my kids because I was, when you can't do anything, I had 3 to 4 functional hours a day. That's the length of time I had that I could function. Now I could borrow time from tomorrow and the next day. So if I went to Nashville to advocate for something and I was gone for 10 or 12 hours, because it's 3-hour drive almost from where I am in Knoxville to Nashville. So 6 hours driving. If I spent a whole day advocating, that meant I was going to spend the next 3 days in bed where getting up and going to the bathroom was a struggle for me. So, it was bad times. But when I made it through that, I went back to some people that I had kind of looked down on and apologized to them about being judgmental about the anxiety and the depression. Because when I'm dealing with pain that's in my chest, at least it's 12 inches away from my brain. When you're dealing with anxiety and depression and panic, you lose the ability to maintain control of your logic, and it is in your head, and you cannot get away from it. So, man, I'm fighting for patients. I'm fighting for vets because there needs to be treatment options. And I'm not talking about just pharmaceuticals. I mean, ketamine treatment has been shown to help people with severe depression. There are some other natural options that have been shown to be helpful. I've even heard RFK Jr. talking about using psychedelic mushrooms that's been shown to be helpful for people that deal with severe depression, especially for veterans. So there are a lot of options out there that we could be looking at that we aren't right now.
So what groups in the state are opposing the changes that you think are needed?
Well, Big Pharma. Big Pharma doesn't want changes. Right. The alcohol industry is another one. I mean, they want people. I mean, yeah, that's a good look on your look right there. But there are natural treatment options that Big Alcohol has been against because it cuts into their bottom line. I mean, they'd rather have somebody consuming their product than using a natural treatment option. I mean, sales of alcohol have been going down for the last few years. I don't know if you know this, which coincides with the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill, which legalized hemp in the country. So there are a lot of people that have been using hemp products very successfully to treat various health issues. In the alcohol industry, it's one of the things that happened this year. Senator Briggs supported the bill that is going to destroy the hemp industry in the state of Tennessee after he sponsored the legislation 2 years ago that legalized the hemp industry in the state of Tennessee. So what Dr. Briggs gives away, Dr. Briggs can what Dr. Briggs gives, Dr. Briggs can take away. And that's because big alcohol was losing money, and they brought him a bill that they wanted him to support. And since they're giving him money to do it, and I've been looking at his campaign finance reports, almost $30,000 last year came from the alcohol industry. So if we can get into that in a minute, the problem with special interest. But yeah, there's a number of groups in Nashville that don't want to see the options that are available being utilized.
So when he co-sponsored the bill to allow the hemp use, do you have any idea how much money he got then and who paid him?
I'm not sure. I wondered if he did that hoping I wouldn't run against him again, because that is one of the industries I'm supportive of. I've met people advocating. When I was going down to advocate for patients, I started meeting people that were advocating for hemp-related products. I personally know a lady that was put into hospice in 2013 for terminal ovarian cancer, who started using a hemp-based product. It put her cancer into remission, and she's still here now.
Wow.
So, and I will point to my Christian friends. I'm a believer. I mean, the Lord healed me from permanent nerve damage. Believe me, I know the Lord. But for my Christian friends that have a problem with some of these natural treatments, I will point to Genesis 1:29. That's the seed-bearing verse. I give you every seed-bearing plant for good health. You can go look it up. I mean, this is in the first chapter of Genesis. God gave us these plants for a reason.
Right. Well, and he didn't give us pharmacists, and a lot of that stuff is synthetic. It's man-made. It's not necessarily, some of it I'm sure is created from natural plants and whatnot, but certainly not all of it, and certainly not in the doses. I mean, you look at the addiction problem with the opiates over the last, how many years did they just, in little small towns, prescribe enough to addict 10 times the population? Right.
Well, everything's got to be used in moderation and with wisdom. And medicine is a tool, and you've got to use the right tool for the right job. So, I mean, there are always consequences to too much, but blanketly saying no to everything is just as big a mistake.
Right. So who are some of the top donors to Briggs?
Well, the alcohol industry lately, big pharma, big government, the special interests like that. I noticed the number of lawyers, and we can, if you want to start talking about the special interest,
we can go ahead and pop those up there if we got them.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. This is from 2022, the year that I ran against him. And you can go, this is TennesseeReportCard.org, where you can look up campaign finance information. But in 2022, you can see the individual contributions there. It's about 25,000. Well, as I went through it, only 13,090 came from Knox County. That's about 8% of the total of 148,000. Well, if you add up 2023 and 2024, where he only received $500 total from Knox County, but he raised $213,500. If you add that up, that's $364,000 or $367,000 he's raised. 3.7% came from Knox County, individuals in Knox County. And on that page right there that you've got up right there, where I've got a blue line under Total Wine and More, the individual donor from Maryland, $1,000. That's an individual contribution from a special interest, a guy that's involved in special interest. So
what
this is
special interest, do you know?
That's the alcohol industry. Total Wine and More is a huge chain of alcohol stores, and they wanted, what they've done to the hemp industry in the state of Tennessee, they've turned it over to the Alcoholic Beverage Commission. The Department of Agriculture was over it. But since alcohol was losing their cut on this, they've turned it over now. It starts January 1st. The hemp industry is going to be regulated by the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, and they're going through to a three-tier system to where if you're a retailer, you have to buy from a wholesaler, and they have to buy from the manufacturer, and the three cannot be the same. So if someone out here is manufacturing a product, they cannot sell anymore directly to retail stores. They're going to have to go through a supplier. And they also snuck in an amendment on that bill that outlawed the sale of THCA, which is hemp flower. Now, that's the smokable version of hemp, and some people have good success with that, dealing with anxiety and depression using by smoking it. But that was legalized federally under the 2018 Farm Bill. And I don't know if you remember Frank Nicely. Frank was a good friend of mine. Yeah. Frank was very supportive of this industry. He was one of the champions of the hemp industry and try to get it legalized and regulated. And he did successfully. I mean, he supported the Briggs bill. It was, the 2022 Briggs bill. Right. But they've outlawed the sale of hemp flower now. That starts in January as well. Well, 75% of sales in the state of Tennessee are hemp flower. So stores that are, you see these little hemp stores around, this is going to devastate them. 90% of these stores are going to go out of business because they're not going to be able to sell the product that's actually selling in the state of Tennessee.
Now, the THC in hemp, I think by law, it had to be less than 3%, something along those lines.
0.3%.
0.3. So
yeah, it's a very
so it was always that if it got above that, and they came in and this was once they allowed the hemp into Tennessee, if they showed up and you had some that was above that, you were going to lose whatever was above that already. So it was already being regulated, right?
Oh yeah. The Tennessee Department of Agriculture did a great job regulating it. We did not need to make changes to that, but it was special interest that brought the bill and special interest that pushed it, and special interest got it passed. So this was a handout to special interest.
Wow.
Yeah. Anything
else on his donors?
Well, I'm still going through the most two recent years. The fact a lot of these special interest groups, when you go through the report, it's like Johnson and Jones. So you don't even actually know what the special interest is for. If it's the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, that's pretty easy to know what that money's coming from. But there's a lot of special interest. About 92% of his money over the last 3 years has been special interest. And even some of the individual donors, like I just showed, are special interest as well. So it's a complex thing to find out exactly who is supporting these politicians in Nashville, because the PACs can be a nebulous term that you can't tell by the name what they support.
Yeah. Well, and you can have a PAC donate to another PAC, and so you won't necessarily know. You'll see which PAC donated it, but you won't know who they got that money from, maybe to donate, because they do that as well. From one PAC will give it to another PAC.
Right.
There's no limit on that, what a PAC can give to another PAC.
Right.
And it's neat. It's wink, wink, nod, nod. This needs to go to so and so. That obviously happens. Now, you've done some fundraising yourself. So let's compare your donors from Knox County. What kind of numbers and what kind of percentages are we looking at?
Well, let me go back a little bit. I ran against Richard Briggs in 22, and I also ran for the Republican State Executive Committee. Let's see if we okay, good. We've unfrozen. So I ran for two things last time. I ran against Briggs, and I ran for State Executive Committee. We write the rules for the Republican Party, right. And had over. I wasn't going to make the same. In the first 3 months of fundraising this time, I have raised twice as much from individual donors than he has in the last 3 years. Wow. And we raised more money before the first reporting period than I raised in my entire campaign last time. So fundraising's going well. We've got a good grassroots movement going on, and it's looking good right now.
Good. And this is most of that is in district money, correct?
Yes. So it's Knox County. It's Knox County money. I'm going after the Knox County money.
Okay. So you're definitely pro-life. I think it's safe to say that, right?
Oh yes, sir. I'm pro-life on the unborn and the born.
Okay. So what, if any, exceptions should there be, in your opinion?
I don't actually think there should be exceptions, and I know that can be a controversial issue. The church that I go to, we had a bunch of pro-life speakers coming in back in the 90s, and I actually met a man who was the product of a Nazi soldier raping a French a French teenager.
Wow.
And he had an incredible story. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And, I'm not God. I'm not the judge. I'm not going to make a decision to terminate a life. And as bad as things can be, I think we need to support life.
Well, you don't get any more pro-life than that.
Yeah. Well,
Let's talk Second Amendment.
right.
If you want to share some of the story that we talked about earlier, you can. What is your understanding of the purpose of the Second Amendment?
The purpose of the Second Amendment is to allow the citizens to protect itself against a tyrannical government. Period.
I agree. That's the answer I was looking for. I mean, it's if you read it, it says that. I don't know why they, for some reason in our country and in our state, they just don't quite seem to get that.
Yeah, and they meant military-style weapons because a lot of people, part of the problem is people don't know history. I mean, we weren't supposed to have a standing army. The army was supposed to be the militia, all right?
Yep.
The militia was supposed to maintain their own weapons. In the Revolutionary War, we had better weapons than the British did.
Yep.
We were already using rifled barrels at the time, so our effective range was 3 times as long as what the British had. So the story I had mentioned earlier is part of the problem. People don't know history.
Yep.
Well, I know an absurd about my family history, and I'll tell you just a quick version of it. My original Morrell ancestor, Thomas Morrell, arrived in 1640 on Long Island. And by 1660, his family was the largest landholders on Long Island. The family farm was where LaGuardia International Airport is, the National Tennis Center, and the 64 World's Fair site. Now, in 1776, the first battle of the American Revolutionary War part of it was fought on the Morrell family farm. There's a swamp that went through the side where the Patriots were allowed, where they could escape. Right. Well, after we got beat, 10,000 British soldiers camped on the Morrell farm. That was a third of the British Army. Wow. Oh, and by the way, the population of Long Island at that time was about 20,000. So this increased the population by 50%, and they were camping on the Morrell farm. And so I'd heard the family story is that one of the Morrell sons was sneaking gunpowder to Washington, and they hung him. They hung him on a tree on the farm, and that's what split the Morrell family. And my line showed up in Sullivan County up here. It was North Carolina at the time. It's Tennessee now, up in Bristol. Showed up in 1778. I think they wanted to get away as far away from the conflict as they could, and settled on the side of the mountain that they were not supposed to be settling on at the time. And so I went back to the Library of Congress. You can search anything digitally now at the Library of Congress. And there, George Washington mentioned some Morrells that were sneaking gunpowder to him in New Jersey. And there were prominent, later on in the war, there's a Francis Morrell, when they were doing their victory parades after the end of the war, that was leading part of the parade. So I can confirm that there were Morrells that were involved at the time. And I love family history. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm pro 2A, because if I had a third of the British Army camping on my property, I'd probably want to be able to do something to protect myself too from a tyrannical government.
Absolutely. Well, that's some family history there, and it's good that you're able to find all that out. I don't know near as much about mine going that far back. Yeah. So, are you're familiar then, I take it, with the Tennessee Firearms Association?
Oh yes, sir. I'm sponsoring a table at their event.
Okay. Well, I'll see you there. I'll be there. I'll see you there then. Okay. Now, going along with the 10th Amendment. With the Second Amendment, the 10th Amendment. And I always kind of put those two together, and I always like to say it'll be 10 or it'll be 2. Okay, and you can follow that up with your favorite adjective. Right. But I think the 10th Amendment, and like you said, we don't know history. We also don't know our Constitution and the history of our Constitution and the reason we have a lot of the amendments that we have. So let me kind of hear where you're at on the 10th Amendment.
Well, you're talking about the delegated powers. So we have allowed the federal government to take over responsibilities of the state. What's not delegated to the federal government is supposed to be left to the state. And if you want to get into nullification, I think a lot of these laws that the federal government have pushed down on us is a problem. And we need to be kicking back at a state level, because The only reason the federal government exists is because the states gave them the power to exist. Yep. We do not exist because of them. They exist because of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was a compact between the states, and it's not a compact theory, it's a compact fact that created the federal government with limited defined powers.
Exactly.
And so, we have the Second Amendment if that federal government gets too tyrannical, and I always have to wonder what we're waiting on, but all the same, that is pretty much the Second Amendment. Would you agree that's your shoot your government if you have to amendment? That's the way I put it. That may not be the way you want to put it since you're running for office, but I think you've already said that it's to protect us from a tyrannical federal government.
Right. That is the purpose of it, whether people like it or not. That is the purpose of the Second Amendment.
And so my thing is, there's so many. As a matter of fact, Briggs was on the committee that killed the nullification bill, this past year and the year before that. What makes no sense to me is there's a lot of people up there, a lot of elected officials that say they believe in the Second Amendment and they believe in the 10th Amendment. And they will give the correct answer on the Second Amendment. Well, hey, that's just protect us from a tyrannical federal government. But when you bring up nullification, which, let's face it, without nullification, the 10th Amendment is meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless. So you're telling me these people are saying, well, we can shoot the government if we have to, but we can't tell them no.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me. So I hope that if you're elected, and I would think by your responses that you would be supportive of nullification, and I'm sure that bill is going to come back in this upcoming session.
Oh, absolutely. We need to exercise our power as a state. And I'll tell you something about my opponent, Dr. Briggs. He's the biggest knee bender to the federal government we have in Nashville. I've never seen anybody capitulate more than that man. If the federal government says we need to vaccinate everybody, he's going to tell us to get vaccinated. You've got some other slides from an article that I sent you where he said lives matter more than freedoms. This was back when COVID was going on. Brother, lives do not matter more than freedoms. If you don't have the freedom, your life doesn't matter. Yeah, let's read that. One of the things I've heard some of the leaders say is they want to protect civil rights and the Constitution and the freedom of citizens, Briggs told Knox News. I think the most important thing political leaders can do when we have an epidemic is to protect the health of the population. Those kind of statements I don't know that I agree with, because freedom doesn't do you any good if you're dead. Well, that sounds great. But who's going to be making the mandates? Who's going to decide? Him? We already saw how many problems the federal government caused with these mandates and how wrong they were on the treatment options. How many people died just because of the treatment?
Yep.
Yeah. Briggs said authorities should disperse crowds and that the Knox County Health Department should forcibly close businesses such as Knox Wholesale Furniture that defy mandates from the local and state officials. That is offensive out the wazoo right there. Yeah, we need to get really serious about it, Briggs said. It is still not going to peak for another 3 weeks. 3 weeks, can you believe that, huh? Probably, we really need to stop the spread now. I'm an old military guy. If they give an order, then the order needs to be enforced and carried out. Brother, this man's a tyrant in Nashville.
Absolutely.
Do you know he sponsored another bill? I'll have to find the number. I don't have it in front of me. He sponsored a bill that would have required sheriff's officers to enforce mandates by city councils and county commissions. Well, I went and talked to the Knox County Sheriff, and he laughed when I told him about it. He said, my oath is to the Constitution. I do not take orders from the city council or county commission. That is exactly the kind of person we need as sheriff. It was Spangler. He can't run again. But someone like Briggs, let's see if we can unfreeze. Spangler would not arrest Tim Harris at Knox Wholesale Furniture. That's the guy that owns it. And these other businesses that wouldn't close during the mandate. But Briggs wanted these people arrested because they would not go along with their overlords at state.
Yeah, because their jobs, their livelihoods, they were non-essential.
Right.
They were
Yeah. Well,
non-essential. And I'm sure he opposed that legislation that tried to correct that, which there's been a couple of those bills ran.
right. Well, you know, he also, yeah, well, we can go through that if you want to. Yes. Briggs was the only Republican senator to vote against the COVID omnibus bill designed to protect workers, students, and businesses from Fauci's agenda. If you want to see these, you can go to the Bad Bill Briggs website. There's a link at the top. It's 30 days of bad votes, bad decisions. Yeah, there you go. It's up at the top up there you can see it up there. 30 days of bad votes. We're only up to, I think, 21. We're putting more out. A lot of this information was from my last run, so we're still combining the information of the last 2 years, bad decisions he's made over the last 2 years. Oh, by the way, he also sponsored a bill that would have allowed medical professionals to vaccinate your kids in schools without parental consent. How's that?
Wow. That's just, those kind of people, we don't need them. We definitely do not need them in office. And what is this?
Yeah, this is Briggs failed to support legislation making it illegal for a doctor to prescribe hormone blockers for gender dysphoria in minors. And you go down to the bill down there, the bill numbers and the dates on that. We provide documentation of all this.
I'm not aware of anything other than what you mentioned earlier, that when he passed or he supported that legislation for hemp initially. And well, let me back up here. In 2021, during COVID, there was a resolution, a Senate Joint Resolution 90005, which was actually a nullification resolution. And they actually now it's a resolution, doesn't really per se have teeth, and the governor didn't sign it, which we don't need his signature, but it was actually a good nullification bill or resolution, and it stated that, look, we retained all the powers that we didn't give up, and this was all directed towards the federal government. This is when they were pushing vaccines and certain other things, and they were saying that, look, we will, if you try to push this issue, and this is my paraphrase, we will oppose you. We have the right and responsibility to oppose you. They talked about nullification. They said we're not limited to court action, but we will use the legislature to oppose. Now, he and every other Republican senator supported that in the fall of 2021. But in the following year, when bills were presented to actually get a nullification process established, he was in opposition. He was, and actually, I think either 22 or 23, that's when he asked for an AG's opinion. And of course, the AG is just like all the lawyers. Oh, well, federal government's supreme in everything, and the court makes the final determination. And that's what they used this past session. There was actually a special session, and the AG said it, so it must be true.
Right.
But, yeah, he's the one thing he voted right on. Now he's been hypocritical since then, because he's tried to undercut it at every turn.
Right.
So, you have other legislation that you want to talk about that he's done?
Well, let's see if I get my list out here. Here's slide number 24. Briggs says he wants to enforce illegal immigration laws, but he voted in favor of SB 612, giving illegal immigrants free tuition at community colleges and state tuition rates at four-year schools. Yeah. So he wants to support immigration rules, but he's voting to give illegal immigrants in-state tuition and free college.
And I bet you he also voted for the bill in 2022 that, what was that senator's name? That basically gave allowed illegal aliens to receive professional licenses. Shane Reeves. And I think most of the senators voted for that. That bill has since been rescinded, but I guarantee you he voted for that one as well. So.
Right. You go to slide number 25. This goes back to the COVID time. Hospitals should be allowed to deny transplant patients a needed organ based on COVID vac status. Yeah, that was another bill that he voted with Senate Democrats on. Voted with Democrats.
Wow.
Yeah. And then just going to the special interests, that's slide number 26. The teachers union, that was one of the big things when we ran last time. We were getting mailers supporting Briggs from the TEA.
Wow.
The Tennessee Education Association was sending out mailers supporting a Republican. Did teachers unions or Gloria Johnson have more influence on Briggs CRT and sex curriculum standards? Yeah, they did. He says he supports students and families. Yeah, let's go down there. But he was just one of two senators, Republican senators, who failed to support SB 623, a bill that established standards for transparency and race and sex curriculum in our schools. Briggs is bought and paid for politician who represents special interests, not you. And I'll add this. Dr. Briggs showed up at a meeting that I was invited to speak at in May, a meeting he was not invited to and that he had never attended before. I think he just wanted to see if I was serious. And so I had an opportunity to tell him to his face, the greatest threat to personal liberty in the state of Tennessee is to allow you to serve 4 more years. You wrap yourself in the flag, and I've got this, I've recorded it. I'll send you the audio of it. I said, you wrap yourself in the flag when you're here. And then when you get to Nashville, you throw that flag in the corner and you put on your corporate uniform. Yep. You are bought and paid for by special interest. At the time, I hadn't run the numbers yet. When I ran last time, it was 91% of his money came from out of district and 63% from out of state. And I pointed and I said, you are bought and paid for by special interest. And then I got into giving $4 billion, how that was, that violates Article 2, Section 31 of the Tennessee Constitution. And I read it to him. It's the state will not be in any partnerships with private corporations or banks. And his response was, just sue the state. And I said, so you're telling me, I've got this on audio recording. So you're telling me we can't have senators that support the Constitution. We as constituents have to sue our senators and our state government to get them to follow the Tennessee Constitution? Yeah, that's right. Because they think they make the rules and that they're gods down there.
Yeah, he definitely needs to go. And I hope so. Things are looking good, but it's early 2026. I hope that the people, especially in the 7th district, now 7th district is just Knox County, right?
It's a very compact district, and it's not even all of Knox County. It's really only about maybe half, if that, because we've got part of District 5 coming in and then District 6 down to the south and wraps up to the east. District 6 is probably half. We're probably maybe a little bit more than a third, but it's based on population. So it's a very dense population. It's Farragut, part of Hardin Valley. You're going along Kingston Pike. It's north of Kingston Pike. So you're getting up into Carnes. And then it comes back around through UT's campus and downtown, and then does kind of a V shape up to the county line, part of Halls and part of Powell. So it's a compact district, which it makes it a lot easier to campaign in. We can do a lot of door knocking. I know some of these state Senate districts are like 8 counties in size.
Right.
But it does make it we can be much more effective per dollar in this race. And we need to raise about $300,000 to be competitive. And that's sad to say. Some of these races, millions of dollars are being spent. Yeah. When Bobby Harshbarger beat John Lundberg, over $1 million was spent in that race. Over $1 million was spent against Frank Nicely. I don't know Jesse Seal well yet. I think he's a good guy. But I've already been told that this race is going to get ugly because special interest wants to keep Briggs, and they're going to come at me. And so if you're out there and you're conservative and you love this country, man, I need your support. I need your prayers. I need your donations. If you can volunteer, I need you to volunteer. I would like to raise as much money from within the district, but I'm not in a position where I'm going to turn down individuals from across the state. I'm not a huge fan of PACs unless you're some homegrown PAC and I know exactly what you support. But I'm not going to be taking money from groups that think I'm going to go down there and do their will. If we already agree, if the TFA wanted to support me, then I'm going to fight for the Second Amendment anyway.
Right.
So I would happily accept support from the TFA because I already support the Second Amendment.
Right.
Same for Tennessee right to life. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for the unborn, and so I'm. You got to know how the game is played. So,
well, I want to say this real quick as far as the whole state. Yes, this is District 7, but if you follow politics in Tennessee, you know that the Senate is our biggest problem. Okay,
Right.
The House is bad enough, but the Senate is terrible. And so, if you're a conservative, certainly if you're conservative within the 7th district, then this is the guy right here you should be supporting. If you're a conservative in any other district, guess what? We still need to get rid of Briggs, and so. Right. Send some green that way to help us get rid of the reptile, Dr. Briggs. And
there's a donation link at the top of every page on my campaign page. Sendkent.com. There's a donation link. It's right under that. You can't see it, but it's right under that header up there. There's right below Life, Liberty, and Freedom. There's a donation link on every page there.
Are there some other bills you have in mind, specific bills that you want to work on as soon as you're elected?
Well, I like the nullification aspect. We've got to be able to do something on that. Second Amendment, I think we need true constitutional carry in this state. We don't have that. People don't realize that.
Yep.
I would like to fight to restore the hemp industry in the state. That's helped a lot of people, a lot of older people. Like I mentioned earlier, my parents they're 90 now. All right. They live in Bristol. And so they needed to go to the doctor today. And so I drove to Bristol and took them to the doctor and came back to be able to do this tonight. But they have a hard time sleeping. And I can tell you that some products from the hemp industry have helped them sleep. I know a number of older people that has helped them sleep without having to rely on pharmaceuticals. Help for veterans, getting the state budget under control.
Yeah.
I mean, life, my three things. I've attended the Tim Burchett School of Campaigning, have 3 points, talk for 3 minutes, get off the stage. So mine's life. That's unborn and the born. That includes the Second Amendment for me. Liberty. That's no government mandates. All right. We should be able to live our lives how we want to live our lives, as long as we're not infringing on someone else's rights. Fiscal responsibility is my third one. Do you know we've almost doubled the budget in the state of Tennessee in the last 11 years?
And we never have a debate about it. Every year it goes up and there's never a debate.
Right. Well, not just that. People brag about we've got a balanced budget. Well, we have to have a balanced budget in the state of Tennessee. It's required. Right. But this year, what is it? Almost $21 billion is coming from the federal government to the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, we're going to spend 60 and about 20, and that's been the norm. It's been roughly 40% for several years. Years.
Tennessee is going to have to tighten the belt, because if the federal government is going to do something about the budget deficit and the debt we have, they're not going to be able to keep sending this kind of money to the state.
Yep.
And this balloon in spending has just been irresponsible to the state of Tennessee and its citizens. And people don't realize that the tsunami that is coming with this, that's going to hit us, because we have gotten you talked about addiction early. The state of Tennessee is addicted to federal dollars.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so we've got to do something. I mean, giving money to Ford and $500 million to the Titan Stadium. I'm not a big fan of this choice lane things that they've done now. So we've got $1.5 billion to give to special interest companies, but we don't have enough money to fix our interstate system. Man, I've got a problem with that. Yep.
Especially after the Haslam gas tax in 2015. I can't see that they really did anything with that. I mean, I'm sure it helped the Haslams, but I don't see whereas we got much out of that.
Right. Wasn't that slide number 28? I believe that was Briggs claims to be against tax increases despite running a state surplus, but he voted in favor of Governor Haslam's famous gas tax, raising the gas tax by 30% and diesel tax by 57%. Richard Briggs raised your taxes.
Yep, absolutely. Any closing thoughts?
There's not a liberty that Dr. Briggs is not willing to infringe upon. There's not a mandate that he's not willing to enforce. We've got to stop this man, all right? He is the greatest threat to personal liberty in the state of Tennessee. So go check out my sites, truthaboutbriggs.com. That's just his legislative record. Check that out. I mean, I told him at the meeting, I don't have to go negative on you, sir. All I have to do is talk about your voting record and quotes that you've actually said. I'll say this last thing about being pro-life. You know, Dr. Briggs said he only supported the trigger bill that outlawed abortion in the state of Tennessee because he never thought Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned. Well, it's easy to support something if you never think you're really going to have to support it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the Tennessee Right to Life actually revoked their endorsement of Richard Briggs. That should tell you something. In the 2014, there's a Ballotpedia page you can go to where candidates can answer questions. And in his answers, this is the first year that when he got elected to the Senate the first time was 2014. In that Q&A, he says he's 100% pro-life and 100% Second Amendment. Well, apparently he's not.
I've never heard him. I've never heard him be accused of being pro Second Amendment. That's for sure.
Right.
Do you have any upcoming events that people need to know about?
Well, I'm sponsoring a table at the Tennessee Firearms Association meeting. I think, is that the 9th?
September 6th. September 6th.
I'm sorry, September 6th. That's my next big thing. My primary focus right now is talking to donors and talking to voters. Other than conservative meetings locally, I don't have a lot of events that I'm going to. Man, it's a full-time job, and I'm fortunate. The only reason I still have a company is because I've got a great business partner that runs it. Now he keeps most of the money now because he does the work, but I get a little bit, and it does give me the freedom to be focused on advocating for Tennesseans.
Good. Well, hey, thanks for being with us. I hope to have you back, and good luck to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please subscribe and share us with your friends. Check out our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, teeninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and X. Look for Dave's Raves, which are 2-minute audio commentaries on current events. And yes, I have been inconsistent with those lately and will do better. TFA promo, I mentioned this a minute ago. The Tennessee Firearms Association, the Henry and Stewart County chapter, will meet this Thursday, 7 p.m. at the Holly Fork Shooting Center off Highway 79 in Paris. And our guest will be Dr. Ken Berry. Next Monday, our guest will be Vanessa Miller, a concerned citizen here to tell us about an organization in McMinnville, Tennessee, known as ISHA, Institute of Inner Sciences, a nonprofit that might not be as well-intentioned as some may think. It will be interesting to hear what she has to say. And on the 14th, former Chief of Police Billy Phillips of Galloway will be here for part 2 of an episode we did in June titled Small Town Justice or Political Persecution. Apparently, a key member of the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee Investigative Council has seen the video. They had reached out to him prior to seeing it, so this could get pretty interesting. Hope you'll join us again next time. That's it for now. Good night from Paris. And we do have one more promo, I'm sorry. Tomorrow night, August 5th, 7 p.m., Mike Weatherford Show, Cloud Control. Are we engineering the weather? And his guest is Sean Burkhart. Hope you'll join us again next time. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.